Welcome to Melt University's 2020 summer program. This year, our virtual intern program will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Here's your host, President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Summer 2020, Melt University, virtual Melt University. We're rolling on. We've had a tremendous series of great podcasts, great leaders, great advice, great counselors. We've heard from many, many leaders across the board as we continue our summer, navigating building brand you. Blake, that's going to be the name of my book coming out in September, and it's going to be more important and more vital in a COVID and post-COVID world, as there is going to be intense and brutal competition for entry-level jobs, pretty much unlike we've ever seen, because my theory is more and more people out of work in the marketing services field, which means they're going to be pursuing fewer jobs and be willing to take fewer responsibilities and fewer and less wages. And so Blake Lawrence is our guest today. I'm a really huge fan of him as a person, his values, his profession, his entrepreneurship, his leadership, truly the next wave of leadership in marketing and sports marketing and college athletics and athletics as a whole, in the social media space, name, image, and likeness space. We talked a lot about that. 7th year with Opendorse, Opendorse. You look that up. You want to look it up. You want to follow Blake, co-founder and CEO of Opendorse, a social media publishing tool designed to help important athletes, important people post and manage their image across multiple platforms with a single tap. Started this business several years ago, and it has evolved to where he's working with many major organizations across the country and 10,000 or over 10,000 of the top athletes and leaders in sports to set a new standard in social. He took me through amazing tutorial on this recently, and I was just so jealous and so overwhelmed that he could come up with something like this and really execute it to perfection. But also a great, interesting past, not only as an entrepreneur, hugely successful student athlete, was a 3-year letterman, linebacker, Nebraska football team, University of Nebraska Cornhuskers, one of my favorite. Suffered, as we say, thrown off the saddle. Retired, quote unquote, after a series of concussions, but he didn't let that deter him. Got his MBA from the University of Nebraska as well. Has been a very famous entrepreneur, like I said, but worked his way up through, founded companies, worked with other companies. He learned. He got his tools in his arsenal, and even in his spare time, he co-hosts a weekly Nebraska football TV show called The Big Red Wrap Up. And but we've gotten to know each other pretty good recently, and just one of my my favorite people. So Blake, welcome to Melt University. We're honored to have you on today.
Vinny, I appreciate it, man. That's you giving me a lot of props. Hopefully I follow through. I give you some props to your own, man. This is great what you're doing. I'm thankful to share a little of my story and hopefully help those that are listening understand the different paths you can take to having a role in sports.
Well, and like I said, several great things that are sort of coming out of our podcast is that we are enlightening our students to new paths and new avenues of careers in sports business and collegiate sport business, which has been amazing. We're also enlightening them into the various areas of entrepreneurship. We're enlightening them that, you can get off, thrown off your saddle. We're enlightening them into their passion. And we've had several great athletic directors on our podcast. We've had Ross Bjork from Texas A&M. We've had Alan Green from Auburn. We've had Greg McGarity from Georgia. We had Commissioner Sankey on last week. We haven't published that one yet. And we are learning a lot about new career opportunities. We're learning about NIL. We're learning about mental health. We're learning about compliance. We're learning about data and analytics, and getting a lot of positive feedback from the kids. But let's sort of start from the beginning. Obviously, You played football at one of the most vaunted institutions in the country. Back in either your elementary, your junior, your high school, you had to be a pretty good athlete. You had to be a pretty good football player. You had to have a passion for sports sort of growing up. And I don't remember if you grew up in Nebraska or not, but kind of sort of talk about your path prior to getting into to Nebraska, where it all started.
Yeah, happy to. And I'm a Kansas City kid, so Midwest through and through. I live in New York now, but grew up in Kansas City as the little brother of Mr. Tyler Lawrence. Tyler Lawrence was a star quarterback at Shawnee Mission West High School, and Tyler went on to play quarterback at Kansas under Coach Mark Mangino. So
I didn't realize that. I love him.
Yeah, I was a little brother, man. So when I got to high school and started to kind of develop a name for myself. I grew up playing quarterback, but I couldn't because my brother was a starting quarterback, and so I said I'll try this defense thing, and ended up being pretty good at it. Ended up getting recruited across the country. From a lot of people thought I'd go to Kansas, and ended up looking at Stanford and UCLA, Cal, Michigan State, Texas Tech, a lot of these Big 12 schools, and fell in love with Nebraska. So I thought, hey, here's a chance, little brother. I get to go up to Nebraska and kick my brother's ass, every once in a while. Kansas played Nebraska every year. And and so that was a big deciding factor was, falling in love with Nebraska and that fan base, but also the opportunity to play my brother every year, stay a little bit closer to home meant a lot. And, beyond the sports side of things, I was, always in the classroom, excelling on that side as well. And I came into college with 30 credit hours. I graduated my undergrad degree in 2.5 years at Nebraska and got my MBA as well. Yeah, it was kind of a sprint, man. I asked our academic advisor, Dennis LeBlanc, on day one. I said, hey, can I graduate in 2.5 years? And I said, well, no one's done that before, but let's see if we can get you on that path. And did. So that, more than an athlete, right? The true definition of a student athlete. I'm proud of that. And Nebraska was a great place to hone my skills on the academic side, but I'm an entrepreneur all the way through and through. Vince, I got to tell you a story, man. I was thinking back, they say some entrepreneurs are, born or, you're supposed to be doing this. And I think about this story back third grade. I'm in third grade. My brother's in fourth grade. And we found out that the cool kids on the playground had candy. I mean, on the playground, they had candy. Where the heck are they getting this candy? And so, one mentality is, I got to find a way to sneak some candy on the playground. The other one is, I got to find a way to sell candy to these suckers on the playground. So,
by the way, I was the sucker. Okay, so I'm tracking with you.
Yeah, buddy. And so my brother and I, we would take our lunch money and we did a stakeout on the teachers' lounge, and that's where the vending machines were. So we would sneak into the teachers' lounge and snag candy and go sell them on the playground for double the money, right? And we did this for 3 or 4 weeks before we got caught.
By the way, that's when people used to actually have change in their pockets as well, right?
That's right, man. Totally different deal. And but we got busted, pockets full of candy bars. My dad got called by the principal, and the principal wasn't mad. He thought, this is a pretty good entrepreneurial endeavor. So, I think about that is because there was this moment for me, Vince, when I woke up the starting linebacker at Nebraska, and by the time I went to sleep, I could never play football again. Concussions took football away from me. And everyone that's listening has been through that moment in their life where who they thought they were, like a big part of their identity, was gone in an instant, and something you can't control. And so for me, it became an opportunity to say, okay, well, I've always had this entrepreneurial tick. I like the whole being, the student side of things. So what if I took all the passion and energy that got me to Nebraska as a linebacker and put that into entrepreneurship? And really less than a year after I was done playing football at Nebraska, Audie, my business partner, and I, we started our first company, and it's been a decade since. And every day been finding different ways to help solve different problems there for different folks. It's a little different than selling candy bars on the playground, but really not too different from selling candy bars on the playground. So it's been a great journey, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of background on the other side of my path to where we are.
Well, you touched on several things that we'd love to unpack with our students, and really no particular order, but I think one, as a student athlete, not everybody can be a student athlete, but in my experience, I was able to work my way through 4 years of sports information at Auburn, and the athletic department and the campus. We talk to our kids that it is, and even now so more than ever, the ultimate professional lab. And so we encourage our students to, if they want to be in the area of sports marketing, obviously the athletic department of the university is such a rich breeding ground for that. Give them a little advice of a look see if, hey, Vince Thompson's at Nebraska or he's at Clemson or Auburn, and I want to go volunteer. I want to go work at the athletic department. Then we'll segue into the NIL and a couple of those things. But talk about sort of as a student athlete, though. But it takes a village to run an event or a practice or an athletic department or a game, and a lot of our kids aren't aware of that, aren't exposed to it, are they, Blake?
No. That's the thing is I wasn't exposed to it. Vince, I'll just tell you my personal journey. I didn't understand sports business. I didn't until I was sitting in a freshman year marketing class, and a guy, Jason Rathy, who's a great friend now, but at the time is a stranger, walks in as a guest speaker and says, "No, I am in sports marketing and I help brands work with Nebraska and make sure on the day of the game that their advertisements are shown or that they have a great experience for their customers." And I'm like, what is this thing? And then that's just one side of it, one aspect of it. And then some of my closest friends today are those, not the coaching staff at Nebraska, but some of those that were support staff. So when you're going out to practice, and somebody's got to get the bags out there, right? Somebody's got to push the cart onto the turf and take it off and get the water to you. And so there's that surrounding side. Then there's the academic side of it where I've got a close relationship with the head of the life skills department and the people that work there than anyone at Nebraska, because there's this whole other flip side of student athlete support. So if you have a desire to work in athletics, there's a path in many different departments within college athletic departments. But you also, if you have a desire to work with athletes, there are specific roles within the college athletic department that I would encourage you to check out. And that would be the academic advisors, the tutor side of things, is to build a relationship, understand, how you can help a student athlete out the field. You've got the strength and conditioning program, right, where you get to see what makes an athlete tick off the field. Then you got life skills is one that I think is an underestimated part of a college athletic department. And that's understanding that when you leave, a university, you go through a student athlete experience, all those moments that you spend with fans outside of the stands teach you a hell of a lot about life and how people look up to you, how to handle yourself, what you say matters. And so if you can get exposed to that as a college student, knock on the door and say, hey, is there any opportunity within life skills? It's not this, big, sexy, marketing and sports information directors, like where you're maybe up in the press box and booth, but you're right near an athlete when they are trying to figure out what they want to do beyond the game, right? Because that, unless you're going down the coaching route, once you get into professional athletics, all of the sport happens outside of the, what you're doing beyond the game, from an agent or marketing rep or publicist. So I would encourage life skills is maybe an underrated part or path for those that want to work with athletes.
And we, in an extension of that, what we also tell our students is that the lowest hanging fruit for not only on campus, but graduate from a job targeting perspective, the alumni and the sponsors of the University of Nebraska, because you have that emotional connection or that emotional hook with calling on Blake Lawrence as a potential employer. Talk about the importances, because what we're trying to do is point out to kids, hey, here's all these little tricks of the trade that you may not know that Blake and I want to share with you.
Yeah, I would say that there's a moment in everyone's life, we talk about the transition that I went through, where their career is over and they've got to figure out what's next. And for today, this is not even athletes, for today's students on every campus, the moment you got to figure out, oh, I got to apply for jobs. I got to get a resume together. I got to make sure my LinkedIn bio makes sense. I got to clean up my past social media history. Like all of those things, it matters a great deal. I mean, your online presence and profile is one of the leading factors in being chosen for a job.
Preach, brother. Amen.
Right?
We talk about it every day. Please talk about it.
I will. And it's one of those that the same process that we take a pro athlete or even a student athlete through today, which is, hey, let's just think about this real quick. And one of the, it's called the grandma rule, right? I mean, this is like, imagine when you're hitting send.
You must be reading from my lines in my script, in my book, because that's what we call it.
Yeah. Isn't it? Hey, man, and tell me if it's the same rule, but imagine when you hit send on a tweet that you're sending it to Twitter, but also straight to your grandma's phone, and she gets to see everything about what you're doing, who you are as a person, how you represent yourself. And if you look at these, online platforms through that channel, and then also realize like this is a leading factor in being selected for any job, and for the athlete side, it's endorsements, but for just a general student, it would be for your literal job. That those things matter. So clean it up, be prepared to have a discussion about it if you haven't cleaned it up, and be aware, right? Those
tell our students that if they don't think that you and I, that's one of the first things we do is look at that profile, they're kidding themselves, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, for us, we are in the social media world, so it is
right.
A critical importance to have a clear understanding of what you say online matters. Like if you would boil down Opendorse to one sentence, it's that, right? It is the fact that if what you say matters, and if you say the right thing at the right place at the right time, it's transformative. And this is not, again, not just for athletes. This is for people, right? If the right person says right thing, right place, right time, you can change a community, you can change consumer behavior, you can change culture. And that is magnified when you're the more followers you have, right? Or, and athletes have this natural set of positioning in our minds as consumers, as fans of sports, but that's true for everyone. So same can be said on the other side. If you say the wrong thing at the wrong place at the wrong time, it can destroy everything you've built. And some people, because of that, have a fear of saying anything, right? And in today's world, going into the job market and trying to, Vinny, like if you don't have a presence, what are you hiding? Is almost one of those things too.
Right? So yeah. Right.
It's like it's danged if you do, danged if you don't. But if you're gonna do it right. And there are companies out there and that are there to provide a little bit of a blueprint to say, make sure you say the right thing, right place, right time. And for us, we take that approach and we apply it to sports, and then within sports, we apply it to athletes, right? And because athletes, as everyone listening in the summer of 2020 can attest to, their voice is louder than ever before, and it can be used for significant change in culture, society, no matter what you stand for or care about. An athlete will be a feature in your social media feed, right? They will get you to slow your scroll. So that's where we sit to make sure those guys and gals are saying the right thing, right place, right time.
Well, you said something huge, and I want our students to rewind it, replay it, and write it down. What you say online matters, and it. By the way, it's okay, but be your authentic self, but also consider all the audiences and the constituencies and the long-term ramifications of the things that you're saying and you're posting, and you hit on that. And I want to go back to one thing before we move forward and talking about we tell the kids, hey, it's not a matter of if you're going to get knocked off the saddle, it's when. And we're all living, by the way, collectively being knocked off the saddle right now during this period of COVID. But you had this great career, University of Nebraska, linebacker, and then all of a sudden, what you said caught my attention is that you retired at basically 21 or 22 from a game in a sport you'd loved all of your life. But a couple things. Talk about, sort of how you handled that transition, because you could have gone a million different directions. You could have, slinked off and said, hey, my life is over. I'm going to give up. I've lost my passion, et cetera. But you said, "Hey, I love to be an entrepreneur. I love to be in the world of student athletes." So you sort of picked yourself up, dusted yourself off, got back on that saddle. Talk about that transition, because it's okay if you get knocked off the saddle. It's okay to feel bad about it for a day or two, but then you got to get back on there and keep riding forward. Correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that's something that, yeah, you can have your tail between your legs and kind of take your ball and go home, or say, hey, what got me here? I got to change the game that I'm playing, but I'm not going to change the way in which I play the game. Right. That's the part for me. Again, less than a month after I was done playing football, I started my first company, and this is a quick story. I'll try and keep it quick, but it was called mytwitterdiary.com. And basically, I was using Twitter like a diary. Was one of the first guys on the team,
Wow.
with it. And I thought to myself, in 40 years, I'm not going to have access to this thing. So, what if I could turn my tweets into a hard copy diary and toss it on a coffee table somewhere and think about my life in 2009, and 20, 40, years from now.
Well, there were like 4 people on Twitter at the time
Yeah,
too,
no,
right?
right. It was early days, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I bought the domain and built the website and sold one of them. I made negative $53 on the venture, right?
Right.
But I'm telling you, this concept though, here's what happened to me is that I was looking for something to fill the time that was lost when my life changed without football. And I found it in, tinkering, testing, seeing if I can figure something out. Opportunity cost was incredibly low. I mean, a lot of times entrepreneurs that start young, you don't have the kids, wife, family, and you can just kind of go crazy with it. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue your entrepreneurial desires that later you get in your career. But there's no excuses when you're early. If you do have that itch, scratch it. Right. And for me, again, I did not make money on that first venture, but I got a phone call from an investor out of Florida that had significant amount of cash, that had found the website and said, Twitter's not even make money on Twitter, but you're finding a way. Let's explore this. So we started to sit down and write out business plans and growth and development. And, all the way through this process, he didn't end up putting money in. But I'm sitting here, it's like, I'm 20 years old. 2 months ago, I was a starting linebacker at Nebraska. I'm now negotiating an investment round with an investor out of Florida. And
wow.
And for me, I learned one thing in that moment. Vince, it was, why wait, right? If you know more about the technology and the tools that are changing the world than the people in the boardrooms that write the checks to create the technology itself, then you might have a way to edge yourself into a room that you had no right to beforehand. And
wow, yeah.
So age became an asset for me, not a liability, when I started to pursue a path in technology and social media and digital media, because it's something we grew up with. And I'm now part of a different generation. There's my little brother who's 21 and my other little brother who's 13. It's just second nature to them. So the process,
digital natives, I mean, they're wired different.
They are.
Most sophisticated generation of consumers in the history of the world.
They are. And one of the things that I would say to anyone listening is that from that point forward, I thought to myself that I may not know everything when I walk into the room with folks that probably shouldn't give me the time, but I'm going to know more about this one thing than they do. Right. And that gave me an advantage. And to this day, I believe that still it rings true, is that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to pick something you're passionate about, because there's so many lumps and bruises that go along with starting something. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's a roller coaster with lots of ups and downs.
It's brutal.
Yep. But if you are passionate about it, then you're going to find a way to make that, the feeling ring true, when it's like, hey, I may not know everything, but I'm going to know more about this. And there's an obsession. I always say that there's a difference between, everyone's got ideas. Everyone listening in right now has an idea of something they want to do, something they want to start. The difference between entrepreneurs and founders and everyone else is that entrepreneurs and founders obsess over those ideas and they will them into existence. And again, all those things kind of pull you into one direction, where it's like, if you want it, pick something you care about, because you're going to have to, and then find a way to carve out your path, right? Just because it's my path and Vince, your path, it doesn't mean it has to be everyone's path.
That's right.
find your own way and become the best at something. Like, do you have a chance to be the best in the world at something, and it would make you happy? Then hell, if you can do that every day, it won't feel like work.
It's never work. And we tell our students, because you look at the unicorns, let's say Mark Zuckerberg, but you also don't see the 9,999,000 that, we've all fallen on our face. We've gotten back up, and it's not a world of instant gratification. It's a world of grinding, obsession over your ideas and staying focused on them. And so that's a nice natural segue, because I don't think there's probably anyone better in the world to help explain to our students what exactly, particularly you having the lens of a student athletes, explain to them what exactly this name, image, and likeness, NIL, is about. And then where you see the opportunities lie, because that'll segue into us explaining to our students what you do with Opendorse and where those opportunities are.
Yeah, certainly. Well, name, image, and likeness as a subset of sports sponsorship and sports merchandising as a subset of the sports business. But this whole principle started a long time ago, where businesses trying to capture the attention of consumers, and then these consumers paying no attention to these businesses, but they were paying a lot of attention to sports, right? They would go to games, they'd listen on the radio, and then here comes the world of sports sponsorship. Well, if the businesses can't get the attention of the fan, let me go where the attention of the fans are, and that's to the stadium. So let's put up a billboard here and signage in the stadium and that sort of thing. And then the businesses imagine seeing that fan after the game, sticking around just to get a glimpse of their favorite player on the team, and realizing that that's where this affinity really lies, is between these people and their favorite people on the planet, which were those superstars. And so then this became businesses working with athletes, and that, the natural endorsement athlete, Tom Brady talking about Under Armour, Michael Jordan talking about Gatorade, and that whole movement of when athletes are supporting businesses, it brings a tremendous amount of value to the business, as well as the credibility to the products they sell, and fans want to buy it. I know that's a super simple explanation of the endorsements, amazing. Right? But the challenge with that is that whole endorsement side, it takes a tremendous amount of infrastructure to make sure that business, like if you're a business in Atlanta, you can pick the Falcons or the Hawks, right? You can go through the Atlanta United, and that's easy. Those are big old buildings. But then if you think, well, I don't want to pick just a team, I want to pick an athlete on the team, then you're looking at hundreds of different options to wade through. Who's right, who's wrong, who has said the wrong things at the wrong place at the wrong time, who said the right things, right place, right time. And so like finding and selecting and sorting through that becomes a challenge for these businesses. And I know that this is, again, on the highly elementary side of it.
No. This is good, because like I said, nobody's more qualified in the world to talk about it. And we know that it's a giant burgeoning issue. We also know it's going to be a giant burgeoning opportunity now and then into the future, particularly the student athletes that our kids are surrounded by every
day. Yep. And that's so when you think about that, the infrastructure needed to support the athlete endorsement space is significant. It's like every single sports team has several people dedicated to sponsorship sales and sponsorship activation, but athletes don't, right? So that puts a lot of burden on the athlete to try and find those opportunities, or one agent can represent many of them. I'm going to get straight to the core point of this. But this concept here that, when you are using the Atlanta Falcons logo on a billboard, that sponsorship, but what happens if you put Matt Ryan on the billboard? What do you call that, right? Like, are you just putting the word Matt Ryan? Does that matter? Do you need his face on there? Do you just need a photo of him? So that's name, image, and likeness. It's just imagine, but since it's a living, breathing person, right, you have to capture that in maybe three different sides. It's the name, but it's also the image of him, or something that looks like Matt Ryan. So that's the NIL. And in the college sports space, because of the infrastructure needed and the challenge of protecting the amateur status of student athletes, the NCAA is not allowed student athletes to make any money from endorsements, right, from name, image, and likeness rights.
So, for instance, Trevor Lawrence advertising for, say, Head and Shoulders.
Cannot happen. And that's one of those deals that would create a tremendous amount of challenges for protecting the amateur status. And amateur status is basically this concept that student athletes in college, they are not paid to play the game. They are really a separate subset of U.S. citizen with different rights and protections and whatnot. So if they are paid to play the game, then they become professionals, and that would actually create a lot of different challenges for the NCAA model. Well, that's all changing because unlike 50, 60, 70 years ago, where for an athlete to make money from name, image, and likeness through endorsements, they needed to show up on a billboard or do an appearance or, sell jerseys, sign autographs, like whatever it is. Today's athletes, given the advent of social and digital media, they can make money by hitting a green button and tweeting out a promotion for Coca-Cola or for Kellogg's or Campbell's Chunky Soup. They can start a YouTube channel and click the monetize button, start making money while they sleep, right? Like there is so many different ways in which today's athletes at the professional level are able to monetize their name, image, likeness that it's grown so loud the NCAA can't ignore it. That, okay, we used to restrict this type of behavior because of the infrastructure needed, the challenges, and it would mess with the amateur status of college athletes, but that excuse is no longer valid. So now you're going to enter a world where in 12 short months, more than 500,000 student athletes will enter the market for the very first time, this endorsement market. And the connection that they have to the college sports fan is incredibly powerful, right? The passion that lies within college sports is something that brands have wanted to tap into for so long. They've never been
that
able.
Giant emotional connection, multi-generation. You get a double bite. You love Blake Lawrence, and you also love the Cornhuskers, and you may have loved them your whole life, and your son and your grandfather may have loved them.
That's right. And I would say that your professional sports heroes have probably started their career in a uniform that you loved and ended in a uniform that you didn't like, right?
Ooh,
but there's not a college athlete outside of some of the transfers that occur today, but that's rare. A college athlete starts their career in your uniform and ends it in your uniform, and for that reason, you are a fan for life on a different level, and you feel as if you were there before anyone knew him. And that is one of the most powerful connections in consumer behavior and consumer marketing
in the world.
In the world, because you are the college sports itself is irrational, right? The concept of connecting to these logos and teams and competitions at a deep degree. It's, but we love it. And then college sports is where the passion is off the charts. And then now that final step of the ladder, which is the college athlete, it's going to create a tremendous amount of value in the market for a lot of people. Athletes have to stay at the center of it, right? And this is going to be a way that if they are able to capitalize and make money through endorsement deals and name, image, and likeness rights in a way that doesn't distract them from the fact they still got to go to class, they still got to go to practice, they still got to be a good member of the team, then it's going to do great things for the college sports arena. And we're excited to, we help thousands and thousands of student athletes today understand their value and provide them tools to maximize that value. And, 12 months from now, be able to flip a switch and help them monetize it.
Well, there's a couple, and by the way, fantastic explanation. There's a couple of headlines that I want our students to go back and look up, and I think Blake would echo this. But if you've never studied a court case called Ed O'Bannon versus EA and the NCAA, this was in my opinion, sort of the root of this to our students and our listeners, is that for many years you could buy an NCAA EA game and you could see Bo Jackson in it or Charles Barkley in it, and the NCAA and Auburn and the licensing EA were getting the monies from it, but the athletes were not getting paid for the use of their image and likeness in that game. Little did they know, a college scholarship is a 1-year contract that basically heavily favors the institution, where you give up the use of your image and likeness in perpetuity in that Auburn Tiger uniform. I think that's one big thing our students should look into. And then Blake, I recently watched the Last Dance, but the segment on Nike and Michael Jordan and Air Jordan is one of the most fascinating marketing segments and case studies that anybody and it was still a massive phenomenon. But those are a couple of other headlines on this, and so explain because I think that you're going to be obviously you're a giant company now, but you're going to be a giant company. It's going to be tremendous opportunities for our students across the country. Explain basically the service that Opendorse provides not only for the athletes but for the companies who work together with you, that you marry up athletes to endorse certain products. We've done some really great things with you as well. And it's an amazing tool.
Well, I would say let's go back to that centerpiece we talked about earlier. If you say the right thing, right place, right time online, it has a tremendous amount of value. And I'll take you back to 2011. My best friend, Prince Amukamara, gets drafted to the New York Giants, first round. And at the time, I had started a social media agency, myself and Audie, that we were helping businesses say the right thing, right place, right time online. And Prince gave me a call and said, hey, I think social media is going to be a big deal. I'm going to New York. I got 100,000 followers now. I need to know how much this is worth. How do I get more followers? How do I turn this into value for charities I care about? Get endorsement deals. Can you help me? So I said, sure thing, let's do it. And, one of the things that we realized was, one, Prince had superpowers. I mean, if he said, hey, I'm going to be at the mall at 5:00, people would show up to the mall. He'd say, hey, I love these smoothies. People started buying the smoothies. And so that was incredibly powerful because we would work for a year to get a business to any level of engagement like that. And athletes have it naturally. Now, the challenge here is getting him to use those superpowers to say the right thing, right place, right time. Like we would create photos and videos and text them to him, email them to him, direct message him, set up Dropbox folders. Like we couldn't get him to actually ever say the right thing. Like he was, I mean, this feeling, man. Athletes are busy. Like it wasn't Prince's problem. This is an athlete problem. Like these guys are the only people on the planet with the level of influence they have in our society that are not marketers, right?
It is unbelievable.
Yeah, your favorite musician is a good singer and a better marketer. Your favorite actor is a good actor, but a better marketer. Like somebody's helping them land these gigs, and it's usually themselves understanding if I say the right thing, I'm going to get the right gig. Now, athletes, they have the same level of influence as actors and musicians, but they're not marketers. I mean, they got there by performing at the highest level. So their focus is on the field, not their phone. And that became an opportunity for us where how can we help Prince say the right thing, right place, right time without taking him away from his focus? And we built Opendorse, this simple tool. You get a text message and it shows you a video or a photo and it says Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. And you hit a green button if you want to send it, or you hit a red button if you don't. That's it.
Right.
I built it for one dude, for my best friend, so I could actually get him to share the stuff we were making for him. Now, isn't that wild?
It's great.
So he showed it to Golden Tate and Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas, and then we got a phone call from the NFL Players Association a month after we launched this thing and said, "Hey, can we use this for every NFL player?" And we just were solving the right problem at the right time. And since then, building a tool to help my buddy, you'd never think that 8 years later and 13,000 athletes around the world, from Prince to Alex Morgan and Phil Mickelson and the Odell Beckhams and Patrick Mahomes, like those are the other guys on the other side of this platform. But we're still sitting there, trying to maybe relive that first moment where when we got Prince to use this thing for the first time, I felt like, if his career ended tomorrow, we at least had him on a path to build an audience that will last my lifetime, right? Because you never know how long your time in the spotlight is going to last. So we sit there to make sure that the athletes that use our technology, that trust Opendorse, like we are there to maximize their endorsement value, so they can create a lasting impact that goes well beyond their time on a team or in a league. And again, there's so much of the center part of this company that is, if we could just help one more athlete
Right.
say the right thing, right place, right time, and help add a little bit of value here and there. We're doing our job. So that's the athlete side. On the brand side, once you have simplified, access is really difficult. Then reliability is even harder. Like getting access to the most influential athletes on the planet. Where do you start? There are thousands of talent agencies and marketing reps. And you could go to 10 different places to get access to one guy. Opendorse gives you access to 13,000 in one login. And then once you're in there, it's like, when you're shopping on Amazon, Vinny, and you like Amazon Prime because it's coming, man. Like it's going to be there on time. You don't have to hassle about it.
Right.
And then you see that little shoddy, vendor over here, which same product, but it's not going to, you don't know if it's going to get there on time, right? Opendorse is like Amazon Prime, baby. Like you're going to get that post. You're going to get that guy to say that thing, that date, that time. And that creates a lot of opportunity and value for the brands that entrust Opendorse, and the athletes on their side is as simple as a green button or a red button still today.
Okay, so a couple things. How did you know how to build this team? I mean, like this is it's a service as a software platform, but how did you know how to bring these? I mean, because there's obviously got to be programmers and engineers, and then my segue is where are the careers for our students within Opendorse? But how did you know how to assemble this team? Who to pick on the initial come out? How did it? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, well, I would say that we were building up our first company that we had bootstrapped, and it was this Audie and I, and we added another one, and it was a social media agency. So we started to have some need for technology development. So I put out a post on Facebook, said, "Hey, I'm trying to build software. I have no idea how to do this." I was a marketing major, got my MBA, and we convinced a software engineer to quit his high-paying job, take a 70% pay cut, live in his uncle's basement, and work on the software with us. And without that first move of somebody raising their hand saying, "I believe in the vision in which you have for this company, and I'm willing to quit my job to help you create it." I mean, you got to build a team of people that care, that share that passion, because they're going to have to get through some ups and downs as well. But also, you think about any sports team. If you're listening to this, you probably have some interest in sports and marketing and whatnot. But
right.
If you've been on a team or watched a team, not everybody plays quarterback. You got to have a wide receiver, running back, a right tackle, center, guard, and hell, there's a kicker on every team too, right? And so you got to build up a balance, right? And for us, it was one, they had to care, they had to be passionate, and then two, they had to have a skill set that we needed to fill. And so we evolved, one by one. But again, the thing I look for more than anything else in skill set is give a shit. I'm sorry, that's direct language, but like it is care, because this ain't easy, man. Like if you want the easy 9 to 5, then a startup tech company probably isn't it for you. But if you want it, then that's what we got. And if you want to, if once you're in, you're all the way in, then we're going to win some games together. It's going to be fun. So,
well, I try to explain to our students, because I see it a lot with my organization, is that they'll be there 3 or 6 months and they want to come sit in my chair. And I'm like, I've been doing this for 40 years. I was stuffing envelopes at Auburn University when I was 18 years old. And I still do that. And to your point about paying the price and paying your dues, and that's a good segue, because we tell our kids, it's going to be in my book, we talk about it a lot, that LinkedIn is the best and most valuable networking and relationship building tool that has ever been created, without a doubt. It's the most amazing thing. And so I'm sure you get a lot of requests on LinkedIn. I get a lot of requests on LinkedIn for advice or resume or this or that. And I tell our students, like, every interaction with Blake Lawrence is going to be an audition. It's going to be how you would be as a potential employee. There's going to be thousands of you guys scrapping and fighting for these jobs, and it's as only as important as you make it. But what gets Blake Lawrence's attention when somebody reaches out on LinkedIn or email? Give us some of the tricks of the trade. We always want to talk to the great ones about what gets what gets the great one's attention.
Hey, if you want to email me, right, then your subject line, just make it memorable. That's it. Like I'm
Right.
telling you, there is certain ways, and especially, you give a presentation at a school, you do this or that. And I always tell somebody, hey, if you're going to send me an email after this, mention something I said in the presentation I just gave, because like that will show me that you listened, and also that you listened to me telling you what I want, how to get at my attention. So that matters. And there's a lot of balance. Like if you're listening and you're trying to go into a job market, your resume matters. For me, I read the cover letter, and if I like the cover letter, I just do a quick glance at the resume. But I want to know where you're going, not where you've been. And that, to me, because you may not, if you have that mentality to life, then you might apply for that job that you're not qualified for, but because you can't change the past, all you can do is change the way in which you're going to take your past and springboard into the future. So for me, I follow and live by that, where I read the cover letter, and so many people skip over the cover letter. It's a standardized, hey, I want to be a part of this, and switch out this name for that name. And what that does for me is say, like, you applied to 20 different jobs, not this one. And we are, no matter how big you get, you're still when you're a founder, this is your baby, and you want somebody that's going to take care of your baby, man. And that's like, show me in the cover letter that you know what my baby looks like, that you won't lose her, and
Spot on.
Analogies aside, those things matter. So to capture my attention, write a witty subject line in your email. And if you're looking to apply for a job in which I'm anywhere tied to, know the cover letter matters more than the resume.
Well, and here's the thing that we tell them is because one of my giant pet peeves, because we've got generic sites, careers that melt, infos that melt, etc. My pet peeve is attaches my resume. I need to make X amount of dollars. I immediately flush those, as opposed to saying either dig and find Blake or Vince's email, or if it's coming to a generic site, make it personal. Hey, Mr. Lawrence, go Huskers. Congrats on your entrepreneurial success. I really love what you're doing. You're already communicating that effort and that passion and that attitude, because we talk about these things are like blind dates. You got to do something to get the attention to sort of get to the second date. And you just hit the nail on the head, because if I get an email that says, hey, Mr. Thompson, War Eagle, congrats on your success, and working with Coca-Cola for 20 years, I at least know they've done the homework. I at least know they've done the research, and they are communicating what type of employee, because what we're trying to tell our kids is, hey, your competition is going to be fierce, but you and I as entrepreneurs, we're paying them personal money out of our pocket, or money that we've raised or borrowed. That's an investment in this person as human capital. I mean, that's a massive commitment for me. Are you correct?
Oh, absolutely. That's the deal, is like, this is are putting our trust and faith into you, and we want to know that you are willing to do the same for us, right? That's just a balance of going at these things together. And I think that's how all success happens, is when you have clear expectations on both sides, and a will to win, and a clear understanding of what winning actually looks like, right? So those things all come to a head when the very first interaction it does have an impact. You say it's an audition for what it'd be like to play the game together. It's a tryout, it's a combine, it's all those things
Right.
that we're used to.
Well, this has been fascinating. And as we wrap, we always like to ask our leaders and our experts and people who've given their time, share some of your go-to books, podcasts, resources, traditional, non-traditional, that can help and inspire our kids. We've gotten some tremendous answers and feedback from this one. But as a successful entrepreneur, who and what are yours?
I would say that the podcast How I Built This with Guy Raz is really fascinating. He sits down with the founders of some of the most well-known startups and major companies on the planet, from Slack to Peloton, or Allbirds, SoulCycle, those types of brands that are in the news today, and says, how'd you build this? And they take you all the way back to the days selling candy bars on the playground, and that's a good one just to say, how the heck did this happen? And it's never a straight line. And there are so many times you take for granted that this business has always been here. It's always been doing this thing. And that is never the case. There's a person out there that sacrificed a great deal to make that possible. So that's a good one. And, I would say in the sports side of things, I'll give a shout out to Front Office Sports of, Adam White was an intern for us, Vinny, back in 2015, like right as he was starting Front Office Sports.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He moved to Lincoln, Nebraska for the summer.
Wow. I love Adam.
He was a fantastic member of our team, and he had this idea for taking this thing to the next level. And it's been really fantastic to see him grow. But if you want to know sports and the business side of it, Front Office Sports is a great place to start. So those are the two I would say between those two.
Well, and you think about it. I mean, Adam and he's been on our podcast, another very successful entrepreneur, pursued his passion, really started out as a passion. He really didn't think about the money side of it. It was just interviewing these people as a way to get the foot in the door. So I fully concur with you that Adam White in Front Office Sports, and I've not listened to how I built this, but I love those stories because you just hit on one of the huge points we all talk about, that life is not linear. It's going to be like the Great American Scream Machine. It's going to be like that scribbled line, and we're all living it now in this crazy world and environment that we're living in. But Blake, I want to thank you. I mean, this has just been such an amazing, insightful, inspirational session as the CEO and co-founder of Opendorse. I mean, guys, if you want to follow a leader in this industry, not only as an entrepreneur, but what he's doing in this name, image, and likeness space, and where these opportunities are, there's not really a better person or individual. I think you guys could see and hear and feel that passion. But Blake Lawrence, we certainly appreciate your time and your wisdom today. I really appreciate it.
Vinny, I appreciate the friendship and looking forward to seeing this roll out, and thankful to be a part of it. You're doing great things for the industry. You always have been. And this is the next way to give back. This next generation, man, they're coming, and they got some clarity on where things should be going and growing and within sports. And we just got to make sure we get that foundation, ready for them. Right. But you're doing a great deal here to make that happen. So I'm thankful to be a part of it, man. Here to help any way I can.
Well, thank you so much. And students, like I said, listen to this, reach out to Blake, follow him. He's amazing. Re-listening to it. So summer 2020, Melt University, virtual Melt University. We continue to roll on with Blake Lawrence. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.